So we just finished our first theorycraft discussion for Corsair as a hypothetical job in Final Fantasy XIV. As I stated in the first video 2 years ago, the whole goal of this is to have a creative exercise in job design using Final Fantasy XIV as a framework. Having that framework is helpful to give parameters and precedents of a game system already in place. My personal goal is to become a game designer myself, and there's going to come a time when my own designs and ideas are going to come under scrutiny from a player base. I want to learn how to take criticisms more professionally. I want to expand the way I think about job design, and even maybe give Final Fantasy XIV some job ideas as to what their players are looking for. Fingers crossed. So we had a few different job ideas to start with, one from each role, a melee or a physical DPS, a magical DPS, a healer, and a tank. And my community voted on Corsair. Overall, I think we did a pretty good job with the design, but I still feel like it's lacking in some areas. While I really wanted something that captured the pirate theme, we never really landed on something that got me excited about the job. I could still see it being added to Final Fantasy XIV and have people enjoy it, but it's far from perfect. When we started, the pirate theme garnered a lot of enthusiasm, including from me. When we got to the point where we had to justify it being in the game, however, things got a little tricky, at least on my end. What role does it actually fill? Why do we need it in the game? What can it do that we don't already have? The answer to that question was to turn it into a sort of hybrid job that could use different kinds of weapons to play in both melee and ranged positions. As a raider, this spoke to me because allowing casters in your group the chance to just focus on casting during certain mechanics can be very helpful. We actually saw some of this during the recent tier where our Viper used his range attacks to let me on Black Mage or our healers do what they needed to do while he handled the range spot for us. Since we've seen pirates specialize in ranged and melee weaponry in Final Fantasy XIV, mixing the two didn't seem like a bad idea, and I still don't think it was. My disappointment comes in when I couldn't think of other ways to make it stand out thematically. While bringing something new to the table is certainly important and worth considering, just having a cool new class that's fun to play is enough for a lot of players. Where I feel like this design fell short is that I couldn't come up with anything I considered fun. I had wanted to incorporate some sort of gambling RNG system similar to what we had in Final Fantasy XI, or buffs and resources around something like rum. The issue was that Final Fantasy XIV isn't really RNG friendly, and people tend to prefer consistency, whether it be in damage or crit variance, while other people brought up potential legal issues with portraying alcohol in a positive light in the game. Things that I did not have arguments against or solutions to, so I ended up just cutting them all together. But that's not to say it was a complete flop. I still think we nailed a good way to have a hybrid type of class without making it too similar to jobs like Red Mage. You could freely switch between melee and range rather than having a melee and ranged part of your rotation. The ammunition resource would have provided something that many players have been wanting since it was removed from Machinists in Heavensward. And the booty resource was something that I was very happy with because not only could I see the Final Fantasy XIV team having fun with the double entendre like I did in my job trailer video, though I'm not sure how it would work in other languages like Japanese, but it was also very thematic. The first mate mechanic was also something that we developed into something that was more than just a reskinned dance partner by allowing the Corsair to deploy attacks and abilities from that first mate's location. Overall, I think it was a pretty good first attempt. I've also learned quite a bit that will hopefully make future discussions smoother. For starters, I'll be putting more effort into providing visuals for the concepts I was talking about. A good chunk of the discussion time in the first video was consumed by people just misunderstanding what should have been very simple, or at the very least very familiar concepts. Things like how the rotation would work and how resources were generated. I didn't introduce anything new, I didn't break new ground in that concept, so the fact that I wasn't able to communicate that properly up front stood out to me, and I'll be working to improve on that. On that note, I'm going to try using tools like Photoshop and Paint rather than just talk to you through my avatar and text on the screen. What I'm realizing is that this doesn't have to be fancy, it has to be effective. Some things that I'm going to be stopping altogether is trying to make the final video into a job trailer. It was just far too ambitious for the resources available to me, and in light of my other professional and personal responsibilities. I do always strive for quality, but getting art assets for every little thing was very expensive, very tedious, and very time consuming. While I'm already min-maxing the time I spend to get my other work done, I just need to cut the fluff. I also need to hold back from spending too much energy on critiques that I can't do anything about. Some viewers would mention balance issues with the rotation or how an ability was worded. The point of this is to get a design fleshed out, not create a fully balanced, ready-to-play job. It's simply impossible with the resources available to me. We've already seen this kind of thing from speculations that happen from players when the Final Fantasy XIV team gives early information regarding jobs that are just in the game. That like the jobs are in the game, they're giving information with potencies and all that stuff, and people still freak out. And as we've seen, the player perception, while not always wrong, can be vastly different from their actual hands-on game experience. It's probably why they don't release details in the patch notes until the day before. For me, I don't have a way to test these things and concepts and rotations in the game. I have no test build or anything to throw these values into and math out. And neither do the viewers. So agonizing over these kinds of concerns doesn't solve anything, because there's no way for either of us to actually make our point one way or the other, because the job will likely never be in the game to actually test out. There's nothing to balance. So because of this, I will likely keep rotations and mechanics appropriately vague to avoid this in the future. So this happens when it gets a crit, or this happens when this goes wrong, or this happens during this scenario. Just going to remove that kind of fluff from the outside. The 14 team, if they decide to pick any of these up, can figure that out on their own. That being said, I'm still going to keep this format for everyone to engage in. The idea is still to get your feedback. I learned a lot from people who challenged my original ideas, as well as those who liked them, but still wanted more. I genuinely believe that I'm at my best when I'm collaborating with others, and the ideas I come up with on my own will never be as good as the ones I can refine in a group. I also think splitting this into 3 videos gave plenty of room for feedback and improvement. So for the time being, I'm going to stick to that format. And that's it. Apart from everything regarding this whole process, I do plan to make this content more of a focus for myself moving forward. It's not really great for views, but it's important for me, I believe, to get this experience in wherever I can. Plus, it's a lot of fun. My goal for the next job is to get a video out every month. That should give me enough time to script things out and properly respond to feedback. So, buckle up everyone. Next time we're going to be designing the Magitech Knight.